Good morning. I really have to say that this is a perfect positioning, I feel, for me to now talk to you because I'm, by the way, Vicki Porter. I direct the Knight Digital Media Center, and I used to say at USC Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism, but that got too long on the card. I have to say that the fact that Marty and Jonathan really showed you so many incredibly wonderful bells and whistles of the future and the things that are being done and the partnerships. I just kind of felt like I got this heady brew, this real, like, I'm kind of drunk on the excitement. My role as the director of the Knight Digital Media Center is actually one I see myself abridging all of this wonderful creative energy and frankly going into the trenches. What I do as a director of a journalism training program, which is how we started out, is try to figure out how to save news and information and community engagement on critical issues. That's basically what we've done at the Knight Digital Media Center. First of all, a brief history. Marty mentioned they were going into their 15th year. We're the second oldest center at USC Annenberg. We started in 2000. And we started as the Western Knight Center for Specialized Journalism. Our funder is the Knight Foundation, which you heard has been really involved in several of the earlier programs also. And the Knight brothers made their money in journalism, in newspapers. And I was one of the last, I mean when I say I, because frankly the Knight Digital Media Center is in fact myself and my program assistant. And all those people back there in those seats, that's my virtual staff. And there are about a dozen of them. You just can't see them. They're in Chicago. They were in Cambodia for a while. They're in Denver, Colorado. They're in the Northwest. They're in the Southeast. But what we do at the Knight Digital Media Center is basically aggregate very smart people and bring them into rooms with smart people to try to figure out how to do the work to serve audiences that are changing at the speed of light, as you've seen earlier. The Western Knight Center, we focused on journalists, frontline journalists, and how they could do their jobs better. And that was very specific training to specialists, beat reporters, education writers, environmental reporters. And we were able to do that for about 6 years. And the Knight Foundation and the way they did things and do things, they're always thinking ahead, frankly. And in 2006, they said, we love what you do, now change. And that's when we became the Knight Digital Media Center, which we are today. But our focus at that time, according to our mandate from Knight, was to focus on leadership and try to transform legacy leadership, frankly. Newspapers and broadcast CEOs, top editors, in how to deal with the, quote, coming digital future. In 2012, they flipped us again, and it was a really fascinating new direction that we have found to be extremely challenging, but also very exciting. We now are funded through the Knight Foundation's community division. And our focus for our Knight funding is on community foundations and their efforts in trying to convince them to put their money into critical news and information projects because of the decline in the legacy news and information sources. In other words, the decline in local newspapers, the decline actually in local broadcast, and the fact that there are gaps in real communities where people live, work, and want to make change, but really don't even know what is happening as far as the critical issues because the lack of this kind of information. So we've spent the last year working from the Knight side of our rail on that communities that have come up with ways to fund these projects, we have become their resource. We have become their trainer. It has taken us from trying to save journalism in the 21st century to our new mission, which is really not new. We've been doing it for 3 years now, in which we're dedicated to increasing the flow of critical news and information by helping organizations. Note the lack of news organizations. Organizations, including others, as well as news organizations, and community leaders. And with that, we also say to news organizations, you must be a community leader. That is a role you must assume in this particular landscape. If you were to go to our website, which I hope you have, but it's really been refocused and away from pure journalism to really trying to help the new journalists, the entrepreneurs, both from the Community Foundation point of view and from the startup, the independent startup who's out there trying to do their own little niche publications, which are basically digital. So we really haven't been with night money in a quote, real legacy newsroom for a long time. But we have been providing an awful lot of sources. What we do is training. We are not a research organization. We take and learn from colleagues here as well as from other institutions and really create opportunities for, if you will, the non-literate, digitally literate to begin to venture out into the world that both Marty and Jonathan are so far ahead in exploring. If some of the clients I've been working with in the last year would be so freaked if they were in the room this morning, because they're trying to figure out how to talk to their audience. Literally, one-on-one, people to people. They're scared to death. We're walking them through this. We have self-directed and web-based modules on our website. We have virtual classes, which we've been experimenting in and which we hope to turn into a revenue stream. With the help of Bruce, we've been able to get USC to allow us to collect money. We've spent 2 years trying to actually bill people for our services. And we've been doing conferences and workshops around the corner. Those of you who follow me on Facebook are much aware, should be aware, that I have been in places I never would have put on my bucket list. And United and I have a really close personal relationship. And we also have been offering, and this is really important to share, moving from being grant funded towards, and that's why I think the question Ernie asked of Jonathan and Marty is also important to us, but we have to look at it at a much lower level. Moving towards working with news organizations that are willing to pay, and there aren't that many of them, for our help, our consultancy in developing a cultural change in the organization has been really at the heart. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that part of our work in a minute. But we're really we're putting ourselves out there and offering ourselves as consultants to community foundations who also are in their own crisis, transformative crisis, in the way they engage with their audiences. So as we work on news and information projects with them, we're also trying to work internally. And this is basically kind of based on the work that we did with Patty Riley back in our transformative leadership phase, where we're really going into the organizations, seeing where their culture can and needs to adjust. I have been around with KCIC, with the Knight Foundation. We've been in New Orleans. We had a workshop for about 40 community foundation leaders there to kind of kick off what we've been doing for the last few years. We've been to Chicago 3 times. Our partners in each of these efforts have been community foundations. The Chicago Community Trust has been a major partner, for example, in our work in Chicago. Several foundations in New Orleans. We're right up front. We're going to be in New Jersey this coming May. We're going to be in Charlotte in the summer, and we're going to be somewhere in the Pacific Northwest in the winter. In basically fall, winter. What we do is we really bring together folks who I say have drunk the Kool-Aid of wanting to be part of the news and information structure, but really don't know how to do it. And we're really there giving them very practical information, particularly, and I was, again, Aaron flashed the mobile. we're really trying to make mobile and tablets and the alternative screens front of mind as these organizations seek to engage with their audience, simply because, as we all know, appointment is gone, and they need to have that kind of real-time interaction with their communities. What our second portfolio has been this year, and it really is a beta, but it's been very, very successful. We started it in the summer of 2012, and it really came out of, and again, going to Ernie's, this came out of my, frankly, personal network of having been in newsrooms and journalism for 30 years before coming to Annenberg. I was at a reception at the American Society of Newspaper Editors and went to say hi to an old friend who had just been named the vice president for content for newspapers for the E.W. Scripps Company. And I was explaining our new efforts and what we were up to. And this is how it works, folks. We know you really need to have that kind of relationship. And I just basically said, when you're ready for it, we're ready to help you. And he said, I've got money, let's talk. We had breakfast the next morning. And from that, we've had an incredible, what we call learning partnership. These, by the way, are the 13 newsrooms, perfect place. And this is why I really want to bring this back to we're the practical front line of all the great work that's being done. These are 13 newsrooms. The largest newsroom in the Scripps chain at this point is Memphis, Commercial Appeal. And we have been from Memphis all around this country. The smallest newsroom we were in was the Anderson, South Carolina Independent. And it is an amazing opportunity, frankly, to really help keep the, if you will, the best relationship a community has alive with its soul, I think, really important. That's what newspapers, local newspapers have done and did for centuries, frankly. And Judy Muller's really kind of documented that in her book about weekly newspapers. In these small communities, we see the cool, flashy stuff that's going on, and it really is true in entertainment and media. In small communities, particularly rural communities, their newspaper, although we really are trying to get them away from that jargon of newspaper, their news organization, is their connection to each other. And even as that audience begins to migrate a little slower than LA digitally, we're trying to help the Scripps newspapers migrate and be there for the needs they have in their specific community. And the first thing we tell them is you've got to give up everything you've been doing. Because these organizations cannot be the mass communicator that they were when we all started, when I started in the business. And we have got them actually turning their operations inside out and focusing on audience. That's why I loved, again, the Jonathan talking about the Conyu, is that what he called it? That is so absolutely, the audience at the center is the philosophy we put into this project. And it starts with market surveying, going into the communities with market surveying, and it starts with making the folks in the newsroom go out and talk to audience, and to make audience interaction a daily part of their routine, and to make, and you've all, this is kind of their jargon or their slogan, but it really is about making digital the lead, but print is still completing, because print is still where the money is coming to these smaller places. But they also are learning that older audiences are adjusting really, really quickly to tablets. So they're starting to see the storytelling possibility of that. That's what we do. The partnership, we call it a learning partnership with Scripps. It is about transforming culture. And we have spent an awful lot of time working just with the newsrooms. All those cities you saw, I've been to twice. And we go in with a team, myself, it was both visits, but the first team is a cultural change team to set up the processes. The second team is one of training, of skill training, really starting particularly in social media and in kind of working. And we don't work with the top editors directly in those sessions. We work with the staff. We make this a ground-up approach rather than a top-down, so that the staff is invested in change. As a result of this, Scripps, and again, we haven't been able to figure out a way to charge, but we did figure out a way to get money. And thanks to Tracy Mendoza, we're paid by gifts to Annenberg. So by the end of this year, we'll have accumulated about $500,000, which about half to three-quarters of it is going to Annenberg and KDMC operations. Our outcomes, we've got a digitally print completes organization starting to manifest themselves. The cultures of iteration and engagement are being created. They totally are. Or else, this is the beauty of it, we wouldn't be coming back. They wouldn't be paying us to do this if they weren't seeing results. And they instituted paywalls last year. And we've been credited with helping grow digital subscriptions despite the paywalls. The last trip we made was to Cincinnati, which is where Scripps is held, and it was 7 degrees below. And for those of you who know me, I live in the desert where it's 90 degrees today. This is culture change. But this is on the your right is Mizell Stewart, who's really the man who started the engagement with us, and his vision is what we've been really able to flip into what I think is a very marketable, what we call it proprietary approach to newsroom change and to growing audience within and culture change. We did this for first time they've ever done this, this is not rocket science. We got them to get all their editors into a room with their number twos. Number twos in the room. These are not huge. So getting 2 people out of the newsroom is a hard thing. And we spent a day and a half, literally of 12 hours one day and 4 hours the other. And we went through $200 in sticky notes, high tech, trying to get them to really be able to focus on how they would in fact institutionalize change going forward this year. The goal we have with Scripps and their stages, we've spent basically 2012, 2013, and getting them started. And that literally, folks, is introducing them to the very basic concepts our students are getting when they walk in the doors. But I'm going to go back. Here, look at that audience. You know, they're my age, they're older, but they're still in rooms and in newsrooms and in communities where they can have an impact, and frankly have an impact because of their relations. And they are really, really engaging in a whole way of thinking that has really, I have to say, there has been some turnover since we began this project, simply because when it wasn't working and when the leadership hadn't bought in, it was clear that new leadership had to be brought in. Now we're engaged in implementing. And the goal for Mizell Stewart, the VP for News, is that we have institutionalized in all 13 newsrooms and in the Washington Bureau and in corporate, the institutionalization of digital as real-time reporting, as engaged with community, as really the ultimate in making sure you are the valued source for the information in your community. That is really their franchise, and we have them develop that. Franchise coverage is coverage that only you, as a news organization in your community, or as a community foundation, can provide, because nobody else is doing it. And everything else goes away. You don't have to be giving recipes when you've got a Food Network. You don't have to be talking about, the Super Bowl when you've got ESPN. But you have to be talking about schools. You have to be talking about what local government is doing. And Watchdog is a key pillar for the Scripps. This year going forward, their pillars are increasing franchise coverage, real-time reporting, which is real-time. It is it frankly is a throwback in my mind to the days of the wire service. But they are expecting their newsrooms now to be reporting, literally, as they gather information, and watchdog reporting. So we're going to be doing an awful lot of database training. We're going to be doing an awful lot of visualization training in multimedia storytelling, simply because they need those tools. And the final stage of transformation is iterating, and I can't tell you when we'll have a culture that is so institutionalized that they actually know they have to start over every year. We believe these transformational stages, by the way, probably can be applied across the board to legacy and other organizations trying to figure out how to be part of that incredible wave that Jonathan and Marty's folks are ahead of. So our next steps, because we don't expect to get any more night money, and so we're going to really be planning on leveraging experience with Scripps, and we believe sometime this year that Mizell will actually start giving testimony to the work that's been done in the last few years, because in fact he has seen the results. So hopefully we'll raise that bar, but we also will be now increasing our virtual classes, and as I said, charging fees. Our consultancy will grow. We're also looking at community foundations for an opportunity to work with their grantees, not just to work with them, but to work with their grantees. And I was talking to Laura, because we were talking about here, we've actually been asked by other schools to come in and work with their faculty and to talk about working with their faculty. So we're seeing opportunities there. But really, again, I have to tell you that we're that bridge, and the beauty of the research being done at Annenberg is the fact that every time I go into a newsroom, I am bringing concepts to folks who don't look up. That is the nature of really the organizations that are day in, day out, grinding out information isn't information. And there's this great thrill, I have to tell you, when in fact they get it. And they're out talking to the audience. But the opportunities we've had this year to work with our colleagues here have been limited, simply because we're on the road more than we're here. We do welcome students. We've had students in our office working with us many times. So it's just a case of those opportunities being available more in other partnerships. And with that, I'll open to any questions. Jerry.
Really interesting. My question is, it seems as if your work is really close to where the rubber meets the road.
Exactly.
Really closer than just about anything else.
Yes.
In terms of the evolving news organization and maybe a business model that might evolve. Right? So the question is, do you think, how close are we to moving from the woe is me phase to the eureka phase?
I don't think we're that close. I'll be honest. I think you have to have a combination of leadership at the top. That Scripps, the reason they're a perfect beta for us, because they're small. I mean, Memphis is our largest newspaper. And if we would not do this with McClatchy or any larger, because there's a cultural corporate structure that gets in the way of transformation in these organizations, I think Scripps has really gotten a real cultural change of now, and expecting and seeing it. And we now have broadcast looking to talk to us, perhaps, because Scripps broadcast, they cut the news organizations, broadcast and newspapers apart from the networks and HGTV and the money makers over here about 6 years ago. So they're really looking for an opportunity to use their newsrooms, their newspapers, and then their broadcast as a model, business model. But they're frankly betting on the fact that newspapers might be around in the form we know them for maybe 5 years. And they're trying to set up their relationships in the communities they have to leverage the total change. But that change is it's happening, so they have no choice. But the fact that they're actually seeing some traction, I think, means that they can, the more they engage their audience will find value. And that's what, when I was at the faculty meeting the other day, value is determined by the audience. It's just a real simple economic principle, and I'm the last person to be spouting about that. And knowing your audience and understanding their needs is more important than ever before for all organizations, but particularly for news organizations. And the one thing they have to leverage is the fact that they know their communities and have a relationship already. The rest of it, the entertainment, I mean, you saw all the channels that are available to the world out there. But I think there's great hope for news organizations in communities that have an identity of their own. In LA, that's a totally different story, obviously. We're amalgamation.
Do you have any competition? Are there other organizations, either universities or foundations or whatever, that are really going out to grassroots, sitting down with editors and sitting down?
The closest might be Poynter, but Poynter is also kind of diffused itself in a way. And I know McClatchy signed an agreement with Poynter about 3 years ago, and it basically was taking Poynter training and just, I need to applaud it, because news organizations, the first thing they cut with the downfall was training and development. So they did sign that. I haven't really heard feedback on it. Price point for training is a really difficult place right now, and Poynter is in a difficult position because they are losing the funding, like all of us, for training, and there's a lot of free training going on out there now too. Yeah, there's an awful lot of opportunity to learn. So our strength, I think, is in the digital strategies, and really being able to go in and analyze customize and analyze a news organization and how it operates with its community. Nobody's doing that. I think a lot of it, if they're doing it, is just, this is our flavor of the day, and we'll go in and we'll do it for 50 people or something like that.
I have a brief question or request. CPD is looking into doing some online video work, what that's going to look like, unknown at this time, but perhaps if I can meet with you or somebody in your team to talk about how you ventured into that space.
Sure, sure. The beauty, again, as I say, see those people back there?
Yeah, I know, I like it.
Yeah. They are. They're very quiet. The beauty of what we do also is the fact that we are a plug and play. We can find the expertise that for a specific need, as opposed to, and this sounds so crass when I say it out loud, I don't have a staff.
No, I know.
I have a team. So, and we've been together for almost, 6 or 7 years now. So, actually, I have to say, what I'm messaging, and I hope, is the fact that legacy journalism, if it does, quote, go away rather than transform, I think we have a democratic, civic crisis on our hands. And I think that's where we need to approach it, is not saving, manufacturing. It's saving communities through the skills and the values of journalism, which are more than, how to shoot film.
Let me make a segue to the next presentation. There is an article in a publication talking about training the next generation of journalists internationally. And this is by the Center for International Media Assistance and the National Democracy. And one of the things, whether it's China or Africa or America, maybe we should have some conversations to see whether or not it's possible to take your program on the road, not just to Lima, but to Lima.
Don't knock Lima. I have to say that I think there is a market there, and in discussion with Rosenthal Alves at the University of Texas, Austin Knight Center for International Journalism, the international desire is huge. We've actually started some development work there. For those of you who don't, we used to be attached or collegial with the UC Berkeley Night Digital Media Center, which really doesn't, even though they have a logo, they really don't operate as such anymore. They're trying to figure out how to monetize, but Night stopped funding them 2 years ago. And I was lucky enough to get their training architect, Jerry Monty, on board with us. So he is now my skill trainer, particularly good at, and he has done training internationally, Slovenia, and we were just on the verge of quite frankly, the Philippines just before the earthquake, the storm.
Can you talk about that as a,
Sure.
something that would be good for the world and something that would be good for the
I totally believe there's an opportunity and an obligation.
Well, thank you very much.